calls from the hospital after dinner to ask how the first day went, and when I tell her about 11 girls signing up for soccer, she cheers so loud I have to hold the phone away from my ear. Bryce is scooping Fred's raw fish vomit slop cat food out of the can, and I'm not even saying anything about how disgusting it is, because I'm still thinking about how he has his mom's maiden name. But then he rolls his eyes when he hears my mom cheering, "Go, girls, go!" through the phone. I tell her I'll see her tomorrow, and when I hang up, I say, "What, you think a girls' team is funny?" Bryce shrugs his shoulders like, maybe, and I know he's only rolling and shrugging and acting all cool because Kenny and Morris were laughing about it at school, because Kenny and Morris have 3 brain cells combined. "You're just mad because the boys' team will stink worse than Fred's dinner now that I won't be on it." "Ha!" he says. "You'd be sitting the bench if you were on the boys' team, and you know it." "If I sat the bench, you wouldn't even have a spot on the bench. You'd be in the grass at my feet." Wendell comes downstairs and says, Hey, come on, quit it." But Bryce can't quit it, so he whispers, "MVP," like he even deserved that award last year. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm glad there are 10 other girls interested in soccer this year, so I don't have to pretend to be teammates with Bryce Valentine.
"The girls' team is going to be great,"
Wendell says.
"And for the record, I think B is an MVP too."
MVG, maybe, Bryce says. I'm about to make him eat Fred's cat food when Wendell says,
"Bryce, you know B is a force. Quit it."
Bryce grabs Fred and says, "Whatever, you're just saying that because you like Louise, so you have to pretend to like B." Then he walks upstairs and slams his door. Wendell takes a step toward the stairs, but then stops and looks back at me. Right when I think he's going to go up after Bryce, he steps back and puts his hand on my shoulder, and he sits down on the couch next to me.
"That's not true,"
he says.
"I really do think you're a force."
And I can tell he's about to start getting sappy snorty, and I don't want that, so I tell him it's fine. Wendell bumps his paint-stained knee against mine and tells me that all this blending is hard for Bryce, as if it isn't for me. Then he gets up slowly and walks up the stairs. I can hear him knock quietly on Bryce's door. It feels weird to be here without Mom. Like my team is down a player, and when I look up, I only see the other team's jerseys, so I just have to contain and wait for the clock to run out. The phone rings before I go upstairs. It's Grandma B.
"Good day?"
she asks. I tell her about the girls on the soccer team list and how my teachers didn't let Bryce get away with being a bully follower, and that I found a new way to help Maximilian calm down if he gets stuck. I don't tell her about Aliana Absalon and how she thinks she's going to be number 10 and play center midfield, even though she's not, because that's my position, because I know what Grandma would say.
"Oh, quit that hogwash, B." "Sounds like a good day to me,"
she says.
"You doing okay over there?"
"Yeah," I say. "I could use some M&Ms, though." She laughs and tells me to sleep tight. That night, I brush my teeth with the door closed, and when I come out, I can hear Wendell's voice in Bryce's room again. Cameron and Tucker are in there too now, like they're all having a late-game timeout family huddle. I know Fred's in there, and Dodger and Roscoe are running up the stairs and pushing their way in through the door. Tucker looks out and sees me in my pajamas.
"You want to come in?"
he asks. Wendell calls,
"Come on, B. We're just talking about school. Join us."
Bryce is sitting on his bed with his back to the door, and maybe I'm making it up, but his shoulders seem lower than I've seen them, like something heavy is pushing him down and making it hard to keep his head up. So I say it's okay, and I'll see everyone tomorrow. Wendell comes to the door and says,
"You sure? You have everything you need? I can tell a pretty good mismatched animals story too, you know."
"I'm fine," I tell him. even though I'm kind of mad that he knows about Mom's mismatched animals stories. And then I'm mad that I'm mad about that.
Okay, sleep well,
He says.
Waffles for breakfast? I unpacked the iron and I've got a new mix.
Sure, I say. Good night. But really, I want to tell him that he's trying too hard, and it's making me feel like a guest, and that I just want a bowl of corn pops. Before I get in bed, I try the walkie-talkie, even though I know it won't work. It doesn't. I wake up early, and no one's asking for my threes, but I think to myself anyway. 1, that my new teachers are cool. 2, school lunch isn't terrible. 3, girls' team. I smell waffles and hear giggles from the kitchen as I'm getting dressed, and when I round the corner to the kitchen, Wendell and Bryce are trying to catch the extra batter that's oozing out the front of the waffle iron. Bryce cups his hands, while Wendell is searching for a dish towel. They're both laughing, and Wendell's saying,
Guess I overloaded it, huh?
And I feel weird being here, like this is one of those in-between times and I shouldn't be peeking in. So I step back around the corner to the living room before they can see me. But now I feel weird because I don't have anything to do in the living room, so I just feel like a lurker eavesdropper. And I bet at any second Cameron or Tucker will come bounding down the stairs and see me standing in the middle of the living room doing nothing. I pretend I'm looking for a book on the bookshelves, but even those aren't mine, so I still feel awkward. Cameron and Tucker are always reading, and yesterday after school they organized these shelves with all their favorites. I run my finger along the spines. Some are picture books and chapter books, and some are young adult novels that are 100 inches thick. They call these their had-to-own-it shelves, and they've been adding to it since they were in preschool. The bookshelves take up one whole wall and turn the corner to the next. We didn't have a had-to-own-it shelf in the condo, but we visited the library every week. I like reading too, but it's not easy for me the way it seems to be easy for Cameron and Tucker and Maximilian. It's not that easy for Bryce either. I can tell. They have a few Pete the Cat books on the shelves, which were my favorite. Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons was the first book Maximilian read to me when we were 5, and he'd figured out all the letter sounds and how they make words. We climbed the tree and sat on the big crooked reading branch, and he pointed to each word as he read. Cameron and Tucker also have a couple of Judy Moody books, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Shiloh, which Maximilian read to me chapter by chapter in the tree, and over the walkie-talkie after curfew. Right as my finger gets to Charlotte's Web, I smirk, thinking about Fern's name, and about Bryce being such a bully follower, and wonder if he figured out the pig's name like Ms. Kravitz told him to.
You find something?
Cameron's behind me, and I kind of jump and pull out a book called Bridge to Terabithia. Yeah, I say.
Oh, that one,
Cameron says, and puts his hand over his heart.
You can borrow it if you want.
Thanks. I tuck it under my arm.
Tissues,
He says, pointing to the book.
You'll need tissues.
Then he turns toward the kitchen.
I smell waffles.
There are 2 stacks of waffles in the middle of the counter, and I'm wondering who eats that much breakfast. But before I can slide a stool around and grab a fork, one whole stack is already gone, and they're passing around butter and maple syrup. Then Tucker joins us, and Wendell gives him his stool and stands between Bryce and the cabinets, and we're all smushed in shoulder to shoulder. I tuck Bridge to Terabithia beneath my leg while I eat. Mom comes home from her 24-hour shift and drops her bag in the mudroom, and Wendell gives her a hug. She kisses my forehead and asks us all how the first day went. Everyone says good or fine, and asks about work. And Wendell serves her a waffle, and she and her belly squish in between Cameron and me. She links her arm through mine.
Maybe we should have set the table,
Wendell says.
Nonsense,
Mom says.
I like standing room only.
When she finishes her waffle, she says she's going to sleep for a few hours, then gives me a hug.
See you after school.
Then all the plates are in the sink, and I rush back upstairs to get my backpack. I throw a pair of shorts, my cleats, and shin guards in my bag, in case all Principal Measley needed to do was check the list and practice starts today. And when I realize I'm still carrying Bridge to Terabithia, I throw that in there too. We don't line up outside with our teachers like we did yesterday. We know how to get from the bus to our classrooms already, and that's fine with me because I want to stop by the office to knock on Principal Measley's door. I want to know when practice is. Ms. Landry is talking to a parent, and Principal Measley's door is closed.
Not in yet,
Ms. Landry says. I huff a big, annoyed breath and head down the hall to Ms. Blaze and Ms. Kravitz's homeroom. Maximilian is waiting at our same table from yesterday. Eliana is putting her things in her cubby, and Laurel and Georgia are calling, "Hey!" and tapping the space at their table like, "Come sit!" She's wearing a pair of black pants that are cropped above the ankle with the same brown, flimsy boots, and a sweater that's shifted off one of her shoulders, showing a bright purple tank top strap. And I can't tell if her shifted sweater is on purpose, and it's supposed to look like that, or if she just leaned into her cubby wrong and it got all droopy. Ms. Kravitz is squatting next to Kenny, Morris, and Bryce's table in the back, talking about Wilbur, the pig in Charlotte's Web.
No more making fun of people's names. Not cool.
Maximilian types me a note on his graphing calculator and slides it over. Bus okay? Yeah. Path okay? I slide it back. Thumbs up. We've been passing notes this way ever since his grandparents got him a TI-84 for his birthday last year. It's what he asked for. I'm wishing Principal Measley would come in and announce the news that there will be a girls' team this year and tell us when practices start and who our coach is and when we're getting uniforms and that I'm number 10. Ms. Blaze is calling for our attention and starting to explain a name game. And I'm thinking, what was all that talk about names yesterday if we still have to do an icebreaker name game today? And it's not even a fun one. It's the "My name is Ms. Blaze and I like books" one. Then, Ms. Blaze tosses a beach ball to Eliana. My name is A, and I like athletics. Then, she tosses the ball to me before I have a chance to think. B, I say, and I like... I'm going through B words in my head, but Ms. Blaze already said books, and all I can think of is boys and barf. And for some reason, I can't think of a single other B word in the whole English language. Boogers? Benadryl? Ms. Kravitz tries to prompt me with a few ideas, but this isn't one of those times that I need extra help from a special teacher. This is just because nothing good starts with B. Band-Aids? Blisters? Bagels, I say. I like bagels. And I guess I kind of do, but it's not like they're my favorite or anything. I would have said bicycle kick or breakaway. Eliana whispers to Laurel and Georgia, and she doesn't even really whisper it mean, but it still makes me want to bicycle kick a hard strike right smack into her thigh on a late-season cold day so the sting lasts. Those are good ones, Laurel whispers. Can you do a bicycle kick? Georgia asks. I don't hear Eliana's response because Maximilian has the beach ball and is saying he likes math, which is true. But Kenny and Morris are laughing and doing fake nerd snorts, and when I whip around to glare at them, Bryce is shoving a pair of imaginary glasses up his nose. Their laughter spreads to Mac and Wyatt at the table next to them, and even up to Maddie and Tess and Quinn. It's not big, all-out laughs. It's under their breath and behind their hands, and I don't think Maximilian even notices, so I don't know if I should tell them all to keep their mouths shut or just let it go. Ms. Kravitz knows, though.
Math is an excellent thing to love, Maximilian,
she says. Then she turns to Kenny and Morris and Bryce's table and asks,
Are you laughing because you think liking math is funny or boring or nerdy?
Morris looks down at his hands.
No, I didn't even say anything,
Kenny says. Ms. Kravitz is still looking at them.
Well, I heard you laughing, and I just wanted to check in about that because my name is Ms. Kravitz and I like kindness.
Someone says, ooh, and someone else says, burn. Ms. Kravitz motions for us to continue. Laurel likes lollipops, and Fern likes Fridays, and Kenny likes kites. Ms. Blaze says,
Lots of math goes into how kites fly,
and winks at Kenny. When it's Bryce's turn, I can come up with 100 things that start with B, of course. Brunch, beach, bed. But Bryce takes forever thinking, then says,
Butterfingers.
The bell rings, and Ms. Kravitz lines us up for our next class. The only period she doesn't come to is lunch. But I'll tell you one thing, I wish she would come to lunch with us, because today, lunch is wild. I guess yesterday, everyone was showing off their best behavior because it was the first day. But that's over. Way over. No one's staying at their tables anymore, and Principal Measley is carrying a bullhorn, and if he's too close to our table when he yells through it, Maximilian screams and covers his ears. And this year, our lunch is a whole period later, so I'm hungry, and the line is long, and we go up based on which class is the quietest, so we'll probably never be first. When I finish eating, I dump my tray, push through a group of kids standing at the vending machine, and tap on Principal Measley's shoulder.
Find your seat,
he says. I'm just wondering if practice—
Sit down,
he yells through the bullhorn and points to a group of 8th graders on the other side of the cafeteria. Principal Measley waves me off and starts dismissing our class to the playground for recess. We file out the door, and Ms. Kravitz meets us out there with our recess aide, Mr. Duff, and everyone runs to different spots. Maddie and Fern are opening the big steel trunk under the eaves of the building and pulling out jump ropes. Laurel, Georgia, and Aliana go for the swings. Kenny and Morris put the lid down on the steel trunk and sit on top with their legs hanging over, banging their heels against the side and sighing and rolling their eyes whenever anyone wants to get a ball or hula hoop from inside. Bryce follows them, banging his heels against the trunk, too. Maximilian and I run to the monkey bars. He starts to climb up, and I think back to the summer he started teaching me the words to the Pete the Cat books on the reading branch, and I taught him how to hang on and swing to the next bar. It was a good trade. I start on one end, and he starts on the other, and we meet in the middle and try to pass each other without falling. We have this down. We both squish left and reach with our right arms and pass back to the next rung. We do a couple more runs. Then I see Aliana swing high, like really high, like I kind of think she might swing all the way up and over the top bar. She pumps her legs one more time, and then, at the height of her arc, she jumps and flies and lands on the heels of both her fancy brown boots. Whoa, Fern says, and stops her jump roping.
I can do that,
Max says, and grabs the swing next to Aliana. Laurel and Georgia are pumping higher, too, and Wyatt takes the last swing. And before I can make it back across the monkey bars, everyone's pumping and jumping and flying, but no one can stick the landing like Aliana. Let me try, Aliana says. And to Mr. Duff and Ms. Kravitz, it sounds like Aliana is sharing and compromising well with her peers, which is a comment you can get on your report card, even though I never do. But really, I know what she's doing. She's looking me right in the eyes, and it's a challenge. Can I fly as high as she does? Can I stick the landing? She's looking at me like this is going to decide who is center midfield. Who is number 10? I roll up my Carhartts, one more roll, and kick off my flip-flops. Swings aren't usually my thing. I get bored after 10 seconds. But now I'm pumping hard and going as high as I can until it feels like the swing is ready to dump me off. Then I use my arms and legs and abs to push off and fly. And when I hit the ground, I let my knees bend and hold on like I'm trying to contain a striker making a run up the midfield. And I stick the landing. And Maximilian cheers. I give Eliana that look right back, the one that says, "I got this." Then the bell rings, and it's time to go inside. So I slide back into my flip-flops and line up behind Ms. Kravitz. In English class, Ms. Blaze gives us a tour of the library in the corner of her classroom. We all huddle in the rug area by the couch and the big chairs as she picks up one book after another and tells us a little about them. Sometimes she even reads the first page, then puts it back in the bin. Everyone's reaching their arms out and saying, "I want that one."
"I'll tell you about more of my favorites tomorrow,"
she says, and then lets us explore the bins on our own. I show Maximilian the book I took from Cameron and Tucker's Had to Own It shelves, and he knows it immediately. "You think I can read this one?" I ask.
I know you can.
And if Maximilian says I can. He never lies.
Want me to tell you anything about it?
He asks. "No," I say, thumbing through the pages. He starts to say that if I get stuck, we can always go to the reading branch. But then he remembers that I don't live there anymore. He can't just walk in my door, and we can't just take off down the path.
"We can check in at school about it,"
he says instead. At the end of the day, Principal Measley comes in to make an announcement. He's holding the list. I slide to the edge of my seat, and Eliana does too.
"The boys' team will begin practice tomorrow on Field A. Girls, you are welcome to join if you wish. There wasn't enough interest again this year."
"What?" I shout and stand straight up. "There are 11 names." Principal Measley says if I have any questions, I can find him later. But I know what that means. I'll never find him. His office will be locked, or he'll be busy yelling through some bullhorn. "But read the list," I continue.
"B,"
he says, like that's final. But it's not. Then I see Eliana stand up. 11 is a team," she says. Principal Measley looks at Ms. Blaze and Ms. Kravitz like,
"I'm busy. Can you take care of this?"
And they look right back at him like, "They've got questions. You better have answers." Quinn stands up and says, "I signed up. I want to play."
"Like I said, you're welcome to join the boys if you want to try that."
Tess stands. "We don't want to join the boys anymore. We want our own team." And if this were one of those sports movies that Tucker always watches, everyone would stand up one by one and demand a team, and Measley would have to give in. But instead, he says,
"You need a sub and a manager. That's 13. You have 11. Sorry, girls."
He points to Kenny and Morris and Bryce and Mac and at some other boys in the room and says,
"You can start calling me Coach. See you on Field A tomorrow."
Then he leaves. As soon as the door closes, I look at Eliana, and she looks back at me, and this time it isn't a challenge kind of glare. It's a, "Now no one's going to be number 10 kind of glare. What are we going to do kind of glare. I look at Ms. Blaze like, "Can we?" And she looks at me like, "You'd better." So I head out the door and down the hall, and I know Eliana is right there next to me because the heels on her boots are clunking, and I'm actually kind of glad because I'm mad and she's mad, and even the click of her boot heels sounds mad, and that feels kind of good. "Hey!" I shout down the hall. Principal Measley stops outside his office.
"Numbers are numbers,"
he says, then flips his sign so it reads, "Do not disturb," and disappears inside. Maximilian walks me to the bus